In this video, we're going to learn how to create a select menu with a dynamic option element. Now, an option element can use an ngFor, like we've already looked at in this course, and we're going to explore some of the details. Now, we're going to use this because I told you to create a baggage property on your interface. So what we're going to do inside this models folder is actually create a baggage interface. So go ahead and create baggage.interface.ts. Now all we're going to do in here is export an interface called baggage, and it's only going to have two keys. It's going to have a key of a string, and the second one is just going to be a value, which is also going to be a string. So that's all you need to do is export an interface called baggage with a property of key and value, and both of them are going to be strings. Now we're going to use this to dynamically create our select menu. So we'll close this off and jump into our passenger form. Now inside of here, what we're going to do is create the select menu. So first off, we are going to wrap it inside a div. We'll create some simple text. We'll say it's going to be the luggage. And first off, we are going to say select, and we'll close that off. And then we'll do options. So we're just creating the setup here for our select menu. Now, as before, we also want to create a property called baggage because that now exists on our interface. So we can just do name equals baggage. So this will then be picked up by the ng model and create that property for us. If the passenger has some baggage already assigned to them, what we can do is ng model and then equals the detail and then question mark again dot baggage. So if they have some baggage already checked in or selected against them, this will then appear and dynamically check it in the menu. Now the interesting part is on the option. What we want to use is something called an ngFor. Now we'll set this up and then we'll actually write the code for it below. So we'll do let item of baggage. However, this baggage property does not exist on our component. So this select menu will actually break because it cannot loop through these items. So the first thing we'll do is import that baggage interface. So we'll import baggage and we'll change this one over to baggage.interface. So hopefully you should have the passenger interface and the baggage interface, and we're going to use this one locally inside our form component. Now, if you scroll down to your component class, we're going to create a static property here with a baggage array. So what we'll do is quickly break these up a little for readability purposes. So underneath here, we will create this baggage and we're going to say it's going to be of type baggage. However, it's going to be an array. Now, because it's going to be static and local to the component, it's going to be an array of objects. Now you can see that this is highlighted in red because we do not have key or values. So if I do key and we'll say none, and then we'll do value, which is also going to be a string, and this is going to be no baggage. So if the passenger decides to have no baggage checked in, we can then select this option for them. What we can do is go ahead and copy this, and inside of here, we want to say if they have some hand baggage. So we can do hand and then baggage. Now we want to change this key because we want to assign it to the particular passenger. So we'll do hand and we'll call this one hand only. We're going to give them a few options. So we're going to create a few more properties. So I'm going to duplicate these. So we have no baggage, hand baggage, and obviously we can check in something like a suitcase. So this will be called a hold baggage. So we'll do hold only, hold baggage. And if they have both, we will do hand and hold. And what we'll do here is hand and hold baggage. So we've got four options here. We've got no baggage, we've got hand baggage, we've got hold baggage, and we've got hand and hold. So if they want to check a suitcase in and take something on the plane with them, they can do. So this will essentially allow us to populate this ngFor. So what we want to do inside of here, because the item is going to be each individual baggage item, we can then print that out in the DOM. So what we can do to start with is simply do item.value. So that will actually give us this string value here. So hand baggage here will actually be rendered out as an option in the dropdown. Now to bind the values that we want to assign the customer, we can do value and we can just use the item.key. So let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. So immediately you can see that Steve has no previous baggage because we set these to an empty string. You can see we have a list of baggage here. I'm going to check hand baggage and you can see that this property here has now been changed to hand-only. If we then change it to hand and hold, you can see hand-hold and we can say no baggage and it changes it to none. So this is working correctly. However, if Steve did have an existing item, we want to set that selected property to be the default. So let's go back and implement that functionality. All we need to do for this is use the selected property. Selected you should be used to if you've used an option element before. So what we can do is just do selected. Now what we want to do is just a simple comparison check. So we can say if the item.key matches the detail.baggage, so equals detail, we'll do our safety question mark dot baggage. Then we can then set that value dynamically to the selected item. For the sake of this demo, what I'm going to do is actually go into my db.json and I'm going to say Steve has a value of none. I'm going to open up my terminal again and restart the server just to get those changes updated. So when we go back, we will see that Steve has none as a selected value because we've actually implemented this check here. And we'll see on the option element that the selected attribute has been added. So you can see that we have baggage is none and no baggage has been selected. You can also see that this has been reflected down here. So if we go ahead and change it to something else, this piece updates and this piece stays the same. So the template again is the source of truth here. Now what we need to do is refresh and we'll inspect element on this. Now let's go ahead and inside of here, you can see that we have this ngReflect selected equals true. So Angular itself is actually telling the DOM to set this selected property for us. So in this lesson, you've learned how to create a local model of baggage, for example. So we're looping over a local item baggage and essentially matching it against what a passenger already has. We can update the passenger's details if we want and set an initial value. There is also one more thing that we can do if we wanted to. Now what I'm going to do is simply copy this and use something called ngValue. What that means is we can completely blow away this, and just for clarity, we'll keep both of them in the DOM. By using ngValue, we'll essentially implement this logic that we've just written here. However, this is a bit more explicit and easy to read as we're obviously binding to selected properties, so our intent here is a little bit more descriptive. ngValue is a nice to have if you do know the API. However, if you don't know the API, this is much easier to look at as a developer. So let's save this out and go back to the browser. So this one here is using ngValue. It's got no baggage. We can change it to hold. It's then been updated here to hold only. We can also update this one to hand. And because they're different DOM elements controlling the same model, they won't conflict with each other. However, they will update the actual model value when something changes because they're using one-way bindings and events. So in this video, you've learned how to create your own static array. We've used a type check against it just to make sure that we're implementing it correctly. We've then created a select element. We've given it a name of baggage, which will then create a property on our form. We're binding any existing models. We're using an ngFor, which is very simple, just to iterate over our static array. The value of the option is then set via the key, so we can set these to whatever we like. We're also using the selected property binding. So Angular here is just doing a quick expression to look up which one has already been selected in the initial data model. And then we just print out the value of what the user wants to see. And finally, we've learned about ngValue, which essentially does all of the above for you, but keeps it nice and simple in a single directive.